Well, welcome back, and it's new build time. I've had a very special box all the way from Holland from my old mate Vincent Merlin, ex-World F3K champion, and in the box is a 1 meter glider which is rudder and elevator DLG called the Fling. So there looks like it's 100 baht up to about 185 grams in weight. I'm going to get all the bits and pieces out and let's crack on and let's build it. So I got all the bits out as marked in the fuselage in the first picture. Right, so I've got all those parts out, and as it says in instructions, I've just dry fitted them. Remember to do either side. I'll be fair, they look a little bit burnt, but that is only cosmetic. They do actually fit very well, and for the very thin slots I have just used the tiniest little smear of, this is a P180, literally folded in half, just a couple of wipes. And also just remember, this is critical when you get, this is a lower wing, so the wing fits below the fuselage on this. This is quite unique to the CX range of gliders, right up to their their F3K. They're all underslung wings, so remember that this taper here, this little flare bit here, that's for the wing flaring, because we're going to have the wing with the fuselage sat on top, and there's a fairing that goes around it. I can say that now, I've got new teeth. So I've checked all of those. Now the next thing is we've now got to look at just setting ourselves up with the getting the wing seats in the right orientation. Okay, these are the wing seatings, and I'm going to use this TB2 glue from Angel Wing Designs. You start at the top, and then you slowly load everything from the top down. Right, top tips. These wing seating saddle thingies, I use TB2 from Angel Wing Designs, basically a wood glue. I wouldn't use Sinos, you can end up messing up the threads. Just went down then, men's clothing. TB2. And then all I did was I got it roughly clamped together, and I've just whacked the wing bolt in right through to the other end. One, to clear any excess glue out, but also it gives me a good visual to go, yeah, that looks about right. But also I've got a ruler, and then I could put the ruler up against the sides to make sure that everything was as square as we can. Another top tip, if you can, just wipe off any of the excess glue. It's not so bad with the PVA because they sand off quite nicely anyway. Just makes work lighter for yourself. But I've done the pair of those, so I'm going to leave these to dry, and then we're going to get on with, I think, with some major assembly of the fuselage. Right, we have cut out all our bits and we have glued our wing saddle bolt supports. Now, if like me, you'd spent the next few moments, possibly hours, looking at this and the other bits, trying to figure out how it all goes together. It's a bit like Jenga. Let me give you some tips. So the first thing is to remember that this wing section is the bottom of the fuselage, and I have marked one left and one right so I don't get confused. I then got all my pieces together, and this is the most important piece. This piece here, as you can see, I have this on the top, this on the top, and this on the top, and I have marked this, what is it called, I suppose it's the middle of the fuselage. I've marked that the top so I get it round, I don't end up doing that. Now let me show you the procedure and how it goes, because there is a slight curve into it, and if you didn't realize it, you'd be thinking you'd be doing the wrong thing. I'm assuming this is going to be right. Let me show you how it all goes together. Now I'm going to use PVA And what I'm planning to do, other little top tip, is that when you get this all together, the spurs from the sides of the here will actually protrude through. That's actually designed for the sides of the balsa sides of the fuselage to lock on. So don't get gluing it. You can use it to mount the lay it on the bench just to mount the formers and everything, but remember they've got to go all the way through, and if you leave it glued down to the bench, that those formers are not going to sit properly. So this is how I've done it. Right, this is what you're looking for. Remember, this has got a slight slope to it, so the narrow bit goes at the back. The ply bit is at the bottom here. Remember, this is where the wing is going. This is the other fuselage supports here, and then you've got the two flared pieces here. So this is how it looks. Now all you've got to do is then add this to that. Done. Now, top tip. When I got the front bit in, I just put a bit of masking tape around it just to hold it in place. And as I slowly worked down, I just added a bit of masking tape, and then when I got the whole thing fitted, I just slowly added clamps. Now, top tip is just look down the fuselage. Don't clamp it right at the back because you'll find it will twist. But you can see if you look down mine, it's lovely and square. I'm now going to leave this, as I say, you want these formers here that are sticking out, so make sure when you put your clamps in that the clamps are not stopping the formers coming out, because some of these formers that are coming out are going to be engaged by the outer skin of the fuselage. So I've left that now. This is PVA, this is this TB2 from Angel Wing Designs. I'm now just going to leave this to set. When I'm happy, I mean, if it had a slight twist, you might be able to twist it and then just zap it with Sino. But I think once I'm happy with it all, what I'm going to do is I will add a little bit of extra glue, some nice little fillets, particularly underneath, because once we've got the fuselage bottom surface on, we're not going to be able to get to it. So anyway, it's done. So hopefully that works out for you. It worked out for me. It wasn't as fiddly as I thought it was going to be, perhaps because I did spend some time just making sure that every part, so I literally got a former out, tried one side, tried the other side, and the little tip with the masking tape just to hold it in place, because I think if you be very careful with the clamps, if you over clamp it, it will bow just a little bit. But I'm quite pleased with mine. I have just now, the next thing to do is the fuselage sides. Right, so the frame's done, and now the next thing is this little interesting conundrum. Now, it says in the instructions to use a small screwdriver, because you'll notice we've only got laser print in one side, not the other side. So I think the theory is that basically if you remove this, chisel this out, that will give you enough depth that you then put up to your fuselage sides. And what it basically does means these little fillets that come out don't get exposed. So I think this might be a little bit labour intensive. I'm just going to prep one up now, and I'll get back to you and see how I get on. Right, so this is what it says in the instructions. I've got a screwdriver here, and then the idea is you should then literally put the screwdriver down it and pick it up. I'll be honest with you, I have got just the broken end off my blade, and I actually found that that was a more effective way, because every now and again, if you haven't quite got the depth, you can just gently run the knife down. So that's what I've done there, look. Let me just So that's, I was right, that's the idea, is that the idea is to remove all of this so it's blind. The stubs are sticking out the side of the fuselage. I mean, personally, I think I'd be happy to have just pushed them through and then sanded it afterwards. Anyway, right, I'm going to carry on doing these, then I'll get back to you. Right, fuselage frame, fuselage sides. That little tip I gave you with the using the square on blade, for me, worked really well. I've got to be honest with you, some of the tags in the fuselage, I had a little help with a friend. I just used that. This is a sounding block on like a Dremel. I just took the height down. I think it was the one in the front here was quite long. It was almost the same width as the balsa, so I've just taken that down. You could do it with a sandpaper, but it's very flimsy. That's why I chose to just do some adjustments, because that's what we're calling it, adjustments, just those to fit. Now all I'm going to do now is I am just getting these in place, and then what we'll do is I'm going to obviously use PVA glue, and I would add, so little tip here, I would get it in place, and you'll notice that obviously this little bit here doesn't need gluing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a very sharp pencil, and I'm just going to trace a line round here, so that's going to give me the mark where the glue goes. So when I've got these glued up, I'm going to lightly clamp them, as much as lightly as possible, make sure it's all nice and square. Then I'm going to leave that, and then I'm going to move on to the nose and the hatch. Now what you're looking for is this, because the next thing we're going to need are these three pieces to go along with these two that you will have cut out earlier. So that's the first thing we're going to do. Going to get these, and then I'll talk you through that. This is the nose, by the way. Okay, so these are your nose pieces. So you've got a central bit which is pretty obvious, so that goes onto there like so. That goes on the outside, and then this does the same. So basically it's balsa, ply, balsa. And what we want to try and do is make sure that that sits like that, according to the pictures, because we want that all nice and flat like so, because obviously that's the bit that's going to be going flat onto the fuselage. So I'm just going to glue all these together again using, I'm using TB2 from Angel Wing Designs. You can use any glue. There's another one I use quite a lot of, Gorilla Glue, and so I'm just going to glue all these together, but the tip is to make sure that it's all sitting down like so. So nose blocks going off. Top tip, don't use Sino, because it will be, hang on a minute, men's clothing. Right, it'll be a nightmare sanding. Another little tip, I've used the wood glue, smashed it all on, put the clamps on, and then just left it a minute or two, so it's not going to go off really quickly. Took the clamps off and just checked the squareness. So in other words, I took that one off and just sat that back down, just to make sure that nothing's moved, because you might find that sometimes the glue just sort of does a little bit of skidding. So that's now gluing. So the only other thing we need to do now is this series of bad boys needs to get cut out, because this is going to be the hatch, and we're going to do that in exactly the same way. I will just show you them all lined up ready to glue, but exactly the same process. And again, because we're obviously going to be sanding this to a shape, I would highly recommend you use a wood glue. Right, so basically if you look at this like a set of ribs, the thicker one on the inside and then that's going to go to there like that. So the lighter one on the outside, and then what looks like a flying wing rib is going to sit on there like so, and they all want to be pushed to the front. So you want to get yourself a ruler and then just do that, but they all want gluing to the top because right, that's how your hatch should look, with it square on the end, square upright, and then we're going to cut this just to fit, and it gets sanded later. There's your nose block. Now I've got my front fuselage bottom inserted. Just remember that you might find you might just a little bit open up the fuzz physically, because you might find that it's just pinched in a little bit. Mine just needed a little bit of sanding, but then it slid in. I've actually now also attached the nose as well. I have used wood glue on these, and then to be on the safe side, when I got it all in place and it was all happy, I just wicked some very thin cyano just on the inside, just a belt and braces. Now that we're going to put to one side, and then the next thing we're going to look at, we need your fin and your carbon fibre tube boom, because we've got to make a decision about the length of the boom, and I will talk you through that. Right, so the next step, this is what you're looking for. This is our fin, and this is our carbon fibre boom. Now I'm just going to quote something out of the instructions. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, and then you can make your own decision. So this is from the instructions. We say you can cut the tail boom on a length of about 50 millimeters. So what they're basically saying is you can cut 50 millimeters off the length of that boom. You will not have any loss of performance during the launch. Your fling will be more agile, and you will have less problems with the center of gravity. With a longer fuselage, in other words not taking the 50 mil off, your fling will fly better against the wind and on course. So basically, if I leave the boom as is, I'm going to have to add some weight to the nose. I personally would like the longer boom because I think it's going to be a more stable launch. If you've got the shorter boom, that's my theory, having been an F3K competition pilot. I think I'm going to stick with the long boom. Pause for shock and gasp. So that's what I'm going to do. The choice is yours, and we'll find out very shortly whether I've made the right decision or not. So I'm gonna keep mine this length, and that's what we're talking about taking off. I'm gonna keep mine on. Sure. Yeah, definite. I might flip for it in a minute. Let's crack on. Right, before I start hacking away at the boom, let's just chat about this. This is your fin, and it mentions in the instructions just to gently round the leading edge. And there's no mention, and in fact when you see the pictures of it, this is square. Personally, for me, I'm going to round this off, the leading edge, and I am just going to thin the trailing edge just a little bit as well, because That's going to help with the longer boom CG at the front if I can make this a bit lighter. And yeah, I just think it's aerodynamically be better. So that's why I've got this little bit of white masking tape on here at the moment. I've not cut through that bit there, so I've cut the main thing out, but I've left this attached just there. And now that's going to enable me to be able to sand this all in one piece, and then we'll get on to the boom. I have shaped my fin. Whether that's the right thing to do or not, I don't know. So the next thing we've got to do is I have put some masking tape on there. As suggested, I've marked the 30 millimeters, and I've just, let me just show you, I've got a couple of very nice little engineer blocks there from a late father, and I've run that across there. I've just run 30 millimeters back, and the idea is we're going to cut a slot in this all the way through. So the idea is that that's going to fit on there like so. So this bit is slotted into the fin, and this bit rests on the fin like that. So I'm going to use the Dremel. I'm going to use the multi-tool with one of these blades, and my advice is just take your time, wear a mask, ventilated, and go small and then slowly open it up. Oh, that worked out stunningly well. And little top tip there, get a bit of scrap material from the sheet that the fin pops out of, and I slowly worked my slot bigger, and I used this as a template, so I didn't keep running it backwards and forwards and possibly putting gouges in the fin. Just use that little bit of scrap like I've done. Now that's ready. It says in the instructions we've now got to cover it. We've got to decide, obviously me being I'm right-handed launcher, so we've got to decide which side we're going to hinge it and what side we're going to put the horn on. So there is some instructions there for you. I'll leave that for you to decide yourself if you're left-handed, right-handed. I'm right-handed, don't hold that against me. So I'm going to configure this for right-handed launching. Right, so these are all the ply parts that you need to make the mount. And so basically what we need to do is that you just literally will just drop that into there like so. That goes into there like so. That one drops on there like that. And then you've basically got one on the top and then one underneath. So that's what you're looking for. That and that. And then this is going to get glued onto there. I am going to use again wood glue, and then I'm going to clamp that down. And another good tip, as I did before, is just when you've got it all clamped and glued in place, just drop this in place so that you know you've got your nuts in the right place. So obviously clamped all those together, and that's all now dried. Now I have temporarily just slid the fin back on where it's supposed to go, but I've not glued that yet. And the idea is that obviously we're going to fit this in place. Now top tip here, one, I just used a round file just to ease mine just a little bit to get it to fit over the carbon. But little tip, just do a couple of wipes one side and then turn it around and do it the other side, because otherwise if you just sand it from one side, human nature is you'll just end up rolling over and you'll end up with a slope. So just try and sort of round it out either side. And what we've got to do now is I'm now going to mount this to here, and I'm going to slide it in place. So what I'm going to do is, you'll notice it says in the instructions if you're right-handed because we're going to be having the rudder horn on the right hand side, the elevator horn is on the left hand side. So what I did was, when I'd orientated that in the right place, I just put a little B there to tell me that's the bottom. I then sanded the leading edge. Again, there was no note of sanding the trailing edge, and I have given mine a little bit of a sand to give it a nice trailing edge look to it. So I'm now going to mount this onto here. When I've got the actual position, and we're going to be using cyano to hold it in place, just mark on the boom where that's, so once you've got your position, just mark that, make sure that it's nice and square, and then just mark either side, and then just give that a gentle rub, so a little bit of pencil mark either side, and then just give the carbon area where the mount is going to go, just going to give that a little light sand, and that's going to make it easier for this to bond on. If you wanted to, you could actually put some carbon tissue underneath. I'm just going to see how this goes on first and then go from there. So that's the next step. Right, now then, that went very well. I have just added, so I did mine with my medium cyano, and I tell you what I did do was I just sanded myself a little plate to fit underneath, and then I actually used that clamp just to hold it in place. And then the moment I was happy it was seated and the glue started to go off, I whipped the screws out, making sure it didn't move, and I whipped the screws out, because I did notice that the screws almost protrude through the end of the fitting, so something to be aware of. Don't get over sanding the saddle, because you might find it won't sit down because your threads are in the way. So the only other thing I have done is I have just added a little bit of carbon fibre tissue from Angel Wing Designs, and I've just literally ran that over, and what I did was I put that on first, and then all I did was I got a cotton bud. Don't use these in your ears. I make a fortune out of people using these in their ears. So I actually just used this cotton bud just to massage the medium cyano into the tissue, and then I could form it just around the curves. That's worked really well. No. So I'm now just going to let that super harden. And okay, so we've done the boom. Now the next part of it is literally just assembling it, and I've got to order some servos. So I think this is the perfect time to stop for this video. The next video is going to be on the wings, and then when obviously then I'm going to do all the covering, and then I think we can then talk about setting up the spring hinges on the rudder and the elevator, the installation, and then just the final assembly. I think that's going to make a cracking final third video, because we've got the launch peg and all of that to put in. So the next time you see me, we are going to be looking at making the Fling wings. That's not easy to say. Anyway, I'm off to watch Bake Off, and thanks very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you very shortly.